I guess we've got to keep.
All right, so I've started the recording. It's the 11th of July, 2015. Go for it, Pete.
Okay. Well, today we're going to balance things out because, I mean, generally we show days that are, have a very positive outcome. So today I thought it might be an idea if I balanced the ledger somewhat and showed a day that wasn't so successful, even though there were some quite strongly presenting selections. And I think there's a message to be drawn from that, doing something like this. It's to, I suppose, give everybody a sense of reality with regard to the use of this software. I think all the experienced people know that it's not all wine and roses. You don't have winning days every day, and you can trade in races that present very strongly and yet they don't provide a return. And so it is important to face that reality and face the knowledge, in the knowledge that losses are part and parcel of things in the operation, the overall successful operation of the software.
Yeah, like I've said often to people, it's actually the point of these sessions is, whilst it's good to have everybody get your head in the game to be ready for a trading day, it's the continual application of the rules in a consistent format that will put you in profit. And yes, there'll be losing trades and losing days.
That's right. So it means that if you reviewing all the key indicators and you're making a confident decision about trading in a race and it doesn't pay off for you, it doesn't mean you're on the wrong track or you're doing it the wrong way, or maybe you should consider a revised way of doing it. It's just I suppose it's just the reality of thoroughbred racing, and not always do favourites or more favoured runners win races. Sometimes rank outsiders, there are days where rank outsiders seem to win everything.
Yeah.
And of course they're the days the bookies love. Albeit few and far between, I suppose. Which is
unless they've had an inside tip, so to speak.
Yeah, so to speak. All right, so let's get underway. We'll go through and we'll look at the selections for this day, and then we'll have a look at the data sheet and have a bit of a discussion about how best to deal with days that don't shape up so well. And I think that you'll understand when you see this that you get a sense, I suppose, with experience, you get a sense of days that are not going to do it for you. So you've got to be sort of a little bit intuitive, and I think don't sort of develop that sort of hardy attitude that, oh, well, it's bound to get better if I stick at it. You've got to review the day, and I guess the old saying, sometimes you're hot, you're not, and some days just don't work out with the very best of intentions. And if you can be alert to that and react positively to that, then that can help to contain loss and thereby, I suppose, in a de facto kind of way, boost your net profitability in the longer term. So if we get underway, first race at Flemington, and it was a Saturday, and it's a straight up and down banker trifecta. I mean, not much complication here. $1.50 favourite, favourite holding well in excess of half the market money. We can see, good consistent money for the favourite right up to the 1 minute mark here. Huge associated money gap. Not that that's the key indicator with banker trifecta. But as far as the minor placings are concerned, you can't lose. You've got to cover the whole field. It gives us 42 combinations, and so we're off to a start there with a banker trifecta with 42 combinations. As I said, I'll show the data sheet a little bit later on, so we'll just go through and we'll look at the races. that were involved were involved with trading on this day first. All right, so we go to the next one. Now here again is a pretty straightforward basic selection race. 50, 70, 90 to red money gaps with a money gap allowance for third in place.
Hey Pete, would you mind taking that back to like default selection, so unlocking it?
Yes.
And then just sort of walk the nice people through the thinking?
No, not a problem. Okay. Obviously, as I've said many times before, it's important to look at three key areas in trifecta, apart from the other things that people can refer to in a subsidiary kind of way. You've got to look at the money profile that's presenting. I call it the money profile. That's just the money distribution, how the money is directed to the various runners and runner groups. And as we can see at the 1 minute interval, the serious money, relatively speaking, is for these top three runners. These top three runners are holding 70% of the money. There is, of course, quite a sizable money gap at that point. So 50, 70, 90 to red money gaps would bring the selections down to, for first down to number 3, second down to number 3, and third would go down to number 2, 90% to a red money gap. However, because the money shows us that there is a falling away of money support here, and we have a 1.3 multiple in the money gap column, and we have 90% of the money covered to this point down to runner 8, there is the option to make the money gap allowance for third and just, I suppose, optimize the selections a little bit more, giving us 24 combinations. Now it's pretty clear cut, you know, the money, the selections that we've created have best accommodated the money profile in this instance with 24 combinations. and without actually going and looking at the data sheet at this stage, this produced a loss because we had, what do we have? I'll just take this back here briefly. 6, 5 and 7. Well, 6, 5 and 7 was the winning trifecta. Just missed out, right? But it doesn't. It in no way diminishes the quality of the selections, because if we go to percentage return, you can see that the separator locations are in exactly the same place as the money gap indicators in trifecta, and in fact the separator at the third runner, number 3, is bigger than the money gap, right? So, you know, and no need for recriminations after the event. So, oh well, perhaps I should have included number 5, or
you just can't make that fit at all.
No,
I mean, you'd have to
there
be,
is no justification.
You have to really be having a lend to yourself if you can think you can jam in number 5 there for a second place.
So. I would think so.
So, Pete, can you just expand that
sure.
box back out? Because I think we've got some questions come through.
Yep.
So you just keep talking. So actually, Roger asked, do we trade when the tracks are heavy?
Yeah, there's no reason why not, as far as I'm concerned. I'm no expert in horse racing per se, but I mean, I guess the market in races very much reflects not only the form of the runners, but the conditions that are prevailing. And I mean, there are certain runners that are reputed to be heavy track runners, and all these things are factored into the betting profile, I would think.
Yeah.
And of course, we've got to also remember that the thoroughbred racing industry is a mega $1 million industry, multi-million dollar industry, and a lot of money is invested in thoroughbreds. And if there's any doubt about the track being safe or reliable or whatever, then the meetings just don't go ahead.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of horses running around.
You're not going to jeopardise something you've forked out a lazy million for at the Magic Millions on the Gold Coast, running on an unsafe track. So, and if the track is deemed to be safe, then I mean, particularly metropolitan tracks, and I would think most reasonable quality tracks in Australia would be very well drained in terms of moisture content and all that sort of thing. So they tend to dry out very quickly.
And also, we're reacting to the late money. You know, the people on the track, the people who are actually placing the bets, we're reacting. We're basing our selections on what is occurring. So if the general consensus of the betting public is that these particular horses go well or go poorly in heavy tracks, then that'll be reflected in the money. And therefore we're actually able to react to that regardless of the conditions. Look, there are some customers who will say, oh, well, it's got a slightly lower percentage or whatever that is. That's fine, as long as you personally have taken the time to develop your own ideas and tested those ideas. People like Malcolm, who's got going to be taking a webinar soon. He's actually going to be doing a webinar soon, Pete.
Oh, very good.
For some customers, and people like George, and we'll actually remove those. But they've done quite a substantial amount of homework to hone their ideas. Just saying, right, we don't bet on maidens, we don't do this. It's just too broad brushstrokes. For many years we avoided Western Australia until we absolutely proved that Western Australia was worth putting in, and then we did.
Yeah,
isn't that right, Pete?
That's quite so.
Yeah.
I think that's a very important message that Matt is delivering here. Just dismissing things, on a subjective, on a whimsical basis doesn't make any common sense. Oh well, so and so I heard that heavy tracks are no good. Well, I mean, you hear a lot of things, but I guess the only time that you would be wary would be towards the end of a meeting, and if you've had a successful day and you've got a pretty handsome profit built up, and you get a heavy track late in the day that's offering a trifecta that you could trade in, but maybe isn't the best one to trade in, you could think to yourself, well, do I want to be bothered?
Yeah, there's no gun to your head about trading, so you can go, you know what, I don't need to. If you go back over the data that we have presented and you say, right, well, I'm happy to look at all of these things excluding heavy tracks, then do it. So Helen, hopefully that answers your question. Helen's asked, is one likely to dip into their capital over and above their initial outlay of this trading account? In essence, only if you're trading at full weight and you're not fully trained. Yeah. If you're in the early days, you're trading at 100 and 200 or even smaller, you can get the runs on the board and get the muscle memory, I guess is the right way of putting it, before you start sort of launching into the bigger trades. So the short answer is you shouldn't have to. If you are, or if you have, then let's review some of your data sheets, Helen. There's obviously an issue there. If you've chugged through your initial capital, then certainly take some time, do some data sheets. Don't look at the results when you're doing the data sheets. Be honest with yourself, because if you're trying to flum it and say, oh well, I'm going to stick in number 5 like the race we just looked at, we're going to look at it and go, well, these look fine. Why are you losing? Oh well, I made this decision. Well, let's have a look at that. Yeah. So hopefully that works out. Let's just go through, if you don't mind, go through some of these questions. People are actually, which is great. I love the fact that you're actually weighing in, everybody. Let me just move this up a little bit. We noticed. Pete, have you noticed that Fridays haven't been very good?
Not particularly, no.
Okay.
No, I've seen some Fridays. In fact, I think I'm going to show a Friday that was quite good.
Okay.
If we get time here.
I'll have a look at the long-term stats for you, Lawrence. I know that currently they might not be, the last couple. I don't know, but over long term, it was not a big issue there.
If I could just interrupt,
yeah.
I know that the last time Leslie did an analysis, a breakdown of things, Thursday measured up to be a very good day.
Okay.
I can't remember what Friday produced, but I think Thursday was in terms of strike rate and so on.
Okay.
Was the prolific day at that period, but I mean it can vary. It doesn't mean it's going to be like that all year.
The great challenge with the statistics that we hold is that they are in the past, and so it'd be hard for you to say, right, well, I'm never going to bet on a Tuesday
No.
because, you know, there's times come around, and you can only, if I was trading the program full time, as I know some of you do, if I was going to make a decision about a day, it would be based around my preferred working week. So that might be, oh, well, I'm happy to work Wednesday through Saturday and have 3 days off. So I'm not going to discount Sunday through Tuesday because of any other reason that I don't want to trade,
No.
you know, taking the control. If you say, well, I can't trade on this particular day, well, you're in for a hiding, because I think any day can produce profit.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question. I mean, don't rule out, and I think we've shown a couple of Mondays and doing these reviews, Mondays and Tuesdays. I mean, they're not prolific days in terms of the number of race meetings on offer, but hey, you know, you can have quite good profit outcomes on days like that. And I mean, remember that on a day like, say, a Monday where there's not many meetings, if you can get 1 or 2 wins up and make a couple of $100 profit, I mean, hey, that's money in the kick, isn't it?
Money in the kick, that's it. You can spend it betting on Queensland for the win the state of origin. Hope there's some New South Wales people here. So Chris is just saying that he loves heavy tracks, and Chris is one of our most successful clients ever, because we are looking at the major fluctuations in the money of the runners towards the end of the time there. So,
There you go.
so thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
And Helen, oh, okay. So you're doing your paper trading. So you haven't knocked out your initial bank. That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Can I just keep scrolling down a little bit further, Pete?
I think, can I also address Helen there, Matt? I think the important thing, the message to be taken from this, Helen, is that you've got to treat this venture like you're setting up a small business.
Yeah.
If you were going into, say, a shopping centre and you're opening a small business, you know, like a fashion store or whatever, it would be pure folly to go in there with no consolidated capital behind you and just cross your fingers and say, well, I'm going to be opening the doors today and I hope I make some money.
Yes.
Because you're doomed to fail. And I think that's the problem with a lot of people that go into small business. They're mesmerised by the fact that they are the boss and they're there, and you know, they're not going to be told what to do anymore and all this sort of stuff. But with that comes enormous responsibilities, and part of the responsibility is to be prudent with the money that you've accumulated. So you've got to have enough funds set aside to tide you through that rocky first 3-4 months.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So that you build your business up. If you don't have that, you're not going to make it through that rocky period. You're not going to get through that tunnel and see the light at the end of it.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people do. They get all sort of excited and, oh, I'm going to be selling things, you know, and it doesn't happen that way very often. Your business can be quite lean, and you might open the doors and you have nothing, and a couple of days where you take no money in. Well, you've got to cover the costs, because the costs are always going to be there.
Yeah.
And that's the loss factor using this software. So if you, the best idea is to prepare and practice, not only until you're proficient at the operation of the software, but until you've accumulated enough consolidated funding to enable you to start comfortably, trade comfortably and confidently, absorb the losses that come along, and still take advantage of the winning outcomes. And that's how you build your net income.
Very good. So a couple more people have weighed in here. Roger had a good trading day yesterday, so thank you, Roger. Okay, let me just... Okay. Abraham, if you're having some challenges with the program, technically, I would suggest having a conversation with Chris. I'll ask him to give you to get in contact. And if you've reported it and you're not getting a response, then we might need to check on that, how that's going. And let me just keep reading here. And Abraham, what area are you in? If you can just type in where you are so I can put you in touch with the right support group. Actually, I'll just make a note here, Pete, for I'll make a note here to get Linda to get in contact with you about that. Make sure you're all sorted out. All right then. North Melbourne. Okay, so just if I could ask, I'm not too sure. Is there a North Melbourne or a Melbourne support group running? Is anybody running or being part of a Melbourne support group at the moment that's online today?
No.
Oh, so Cranbourne North. Okay, so I don't know the difference between Cranbourne, North Melbourne, and North Melbourne, but we'll just go with Melbourne. How about let's go with Victoria, and then we'll hone down from there, Pete.
I think that.
All right. No, nobody seems to be weighing in on Melbourne as a support group. I'll ask Linda to get that sorted out. So people, we'll carry on here.
All right. Okay. So let's look at the next race anyway. And once again, we've got a banker trifecta, as we can all see. Remember, the key indicator identifying a banker trifecta is a win dividend range for the favourite of $1.50 through to $1.70, because if the win dividend of a favourite falls to $1.70 or less, then we know that runner has to be attracting quantitatively upwards of 50% or more of market money. And, that's half the market money invested in the race directed at one runner, which is, I suppose, pretty definitive support. And so on that basis, we're happy to trade banker trifecta with the favourite singled out for first. And of course, then the minor placings. And I mean, we've got optimal coverage here, as you can see, which gives us 30 combinations.
Hey, sorry to weigh in there. I was just typing an email to Linda as we're speaking, and I was wondering, Abraham, would you be open to the idea of hosting a Melbourne support group? I can join in via a Skype or webinar like this to assist you through that process. So if there's anybody out there who's sitting there going, well, gee, why isn't there one in my area? If you want to put your hand up and say, yeah, I'll do it, well, that will probably facilitate there one being in your area, probably in your lounge room even. So that would be pretty close if one was to be concerned about travel time. So if that's possible, if that's doable, we have some people doing it in cafes as an initial. Maybe you don't want all these strangers in your home, so you can meet in a cafe as an early get together, and you go, okay, none of these people are axe murderers, so I'm happy to have them to my house. But how do you ever really tell about axe murderers, Pete?
No, they don't really identify themselves as such.
There's no name badge or a union, is there?
Not really.
No. But yeah, look, if you're interested, if you want to have a support group, then have a support group, and so maybe so thanks, Abraham's volunteering. It's great. So if you want to go to a cafe with a bit of internet access, that'd be cool. And Lawrence is just saying he's hosting the inaugural Bay of Plenty meeting tomorrow, so that's really great, Lawrence. Thank you for that. You've obviously listened to me and listened to Linda say, hey, if you want one, then have one. So that's great. Yeah, and the more people that say, you know what, I wouldn't mind meeting one or two or five or however many people locally that want to get together and have a conversation, then do it. Lawrence, I haven't arranged to be part of that, and I think I'm busy tomorrow. I'm sorry, but normally I would be very, very happy. Well, I am always very happy to dial in. Lawrence, if you just want to flick me an email, let me know what time. I'll see what my darling wife has organised for my day. If you want me there, if you don't want me there, then tell me to shove it up my jumper. But really, if I'm going to cramp your style. But if you want me to dial in via Skype or some sort of electronic means, I'm happy to do that. Just let me know the time. All right. So anyway, back to you, Pete. Sorry.
All right. No problem. All right. Now, the next race we're going to look at is a percentage return, and this is one where trading against the favourite could be the preferred option. As we can see, we have a pretty weak favourite. I mean, it's holding just less than 25% of the money, but more importantly, it's sitting third in the field order. So that means that, over the last 5 intervals, it's lost considerable support in the market, even though it's still maintained favouritism. And we see that we have a group of 3 runners that's money competitive with that group. the group of 3 runners, 11, 9 and 3, is holding just slightly more than the required minimum of 47.5% cumulative money, and we have no WUP numbers for the favourite, and we have a positive value in the UDIF for the favourite. So that sort of strengthens the fact that the favourite has weakened in the latter stages of proceedings. So we're stacking a strong group or a strengthening group up against a weakening favourite here. A group of 3 runners, 73% return on offer, potentially. And so there's a trading race where there is the option to trade against the weak favourite. All right, we move on to the next one. Get another percentage return. Here's another one where we've got a group of 4 runners that we could stack up against the weak favourite number 1. Another obviously weak favourite sitting 3rd in the field order, this time the meat and the sandwich, because we've got 7 and 5 holding more money over the last 5 intervals than the favourite, and of course 4 and 8 competitive in money here. So looking in the cumulative dollars column, you can see that there's that competitiveness there. It's very much backed up at the 1 minute interval. It's backed up at 2 minutes and so on. So as we've said many times, now of course percentage return, the priority is in most races to trade eventually or ultimately with the favourite included, whether it be weak or strong. When there are options available to trade against weak favourites where all the indicators are strongly in favour of that, well then I'd endorse that course of action, because by very often including the favourite just in a mandatory way, in I suppose in contrast to the indicators that are presenting, you can deny yourself winning outcomes, such as in this one, because I know for a fact that number 5 was the winning runner.
Hey guys, actually I had a question from a chap the other day. Can I just grab the mouse there for a second? I don't want to hold your hand, I just want the mouse.
No, I was getting concerned there.
So I've had some people say, oh, well, I can't see all the runners in the screen and I don't know what's going on. If you just put your mouse over here, grab it, and you can drag it down a little bit and it'll actually show more. Or see this over here, this little bar, you can just grab it and go down to show more horses. Just as that's by the way, I had one person tell me my program was terrible because we only could see 6 or 7 horses. And whilst I appreciate feedback, I also want people to look and realise that we do know that there are going to be sometimes when there's more than 10 horses in a race. So you can scroll down like that, or you can also grab that. The reason it's taking up most of the screen here is because Pete's got it magnified for in the largest font.
Yes.
You can also reduce the font if you're really concerned about seeing all that.
Because I haven't been eating my carrots.
That's right. You need more carrots. Yes. And Lawrence is telling me that I'm not cool enough to join in tomorrow, it seems. So that's fine. There it is.
There it is.
There it is. My 6-year-old thinks my 6-year-old doesn't think I'm cool anymore. So maybe my 4-year-old thinks I'm all right. No, that's good. See, so just by the way, Abraham, what Lawrence is doing is he's meeting everybody in a cafe just to say hi and catch up. Before they sort of swing into it. So that's a good way of doing it. Just sort of start the ball rolling, get together. Hey, how you going? And, what are your goals and what action are you taking and how often do you use the program? And, do we check the data sheets every week? And what's the program going to be? Are we going to meet every month and maybe have a couple of days where we do data sheets and trade them amongst each other and make this an interactive group? That's the sort of things that can occur. We've got Leon in South Australia, who's absolutely crushing it as a support leader. He sends out emails, once a week just to keep everybody in the loop. Interesting articles he finds. You don't have to do all of this stuff, guys. It's just that if the person with the best group they're taking these sort of actions, there might be a clue in that.
Yeah.
And that whole group, their understanding and their knowledge, their interest and enthusiasm is rising. And I guess because of that, they were the first group that we asked to be part of the online tutorials, isn't it? Okay, workshop.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's so true, Matt. And I think just from the point of view of meeting kindred spirits,
Yeah.
very often it eliminates that feeling of isolation. You sit at home and you think, oh gee, I'm all on my lonesome in the wilderness, nobody cares, all that sort of stuff. And then you get with a group of people, even a small group of people, and realise that you have, kindred activities and interests with the program, amongst other things, and that can be a great boost.
Yeah.
So, yeah, great idea. All right, okay. So now we move on to the next race.
That's great. By the way, Abraham said, yeah, look here, let's give it a swing. So Abraham, I've emailed Linda and I'll email her just saying, look, some names and numbers and a bit of an email introduction to a few people that are keen in the Melbourne area. And so if anybody here is not part of a group and you think, it might be good to meet 2 or 3 other people locally, then let me know via email, matthew@iqpro.com.au, or just stick your name, just type your name into this question box here.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. Sorry, Pete.
Righto, okay. Now looking at this particular race, I suppose as far as basic selections go, we'd be covering the top 2 runners for first. You would bring down to cover the 70% to a red money gap for second to there, and third would come down to there. But I guess we notice here that there is a sort of some similarity of money support for a run of 2 and run of 5. Going to percentage return, you can see that the location of the separator. Remember, in percentage return, we're looking at what's happening over the last 5 intervals, not what's happening over the whole collection period of the race, just what's happening at the business end. And at the business end, the separator, defining separator, is one further down than the money gap is in trifecta, right? So it's sort of telling us that perhaps over the last 5 intervals, all these runners are in the same sort of money category, right, in terms of the money that they've attracted over the last 5 minutes, and that is inclusive of runner 2. So I guess in reaction to that, we're going to cover the second down to the lower money gap, and of course that takes us out of the race with 60 well, not with 60, because 60 is okay, but the low dollar multiple value is beneath what or right on 33.33%. And so arguably, I suppose you could either trade it or not trade it on that basis, because it's sitting right on the minimum cusp, I suppose, or maximum cusp. But it's indicated as a trading breach. So this is one where you could make up your own mind whether you wanted to trade it or whether you didn't. But I suppose being pedantic about guideline breaches, it's indicated as a guideline breach, so that's what we'll react to, and it would be a non-trading race in trifecta. We go to percentage return, and quite happily we could trade with 3 and 1 as our preferred trading group. 2 runners holding more than 47.5% of the money, a 1.98 separator, bigger than 1.7, which is the minimum requirement. Dominant cumulative money support here, dominant money support at 1 minute, dominant here, dominant here, dominant here, all the way back. That's where the serious money is. They're for anybody that's cutting their teeth in the trading experience, these are the sorts of percentage return races to latch onto, because they do have a very good strike rate. Okay, now we move down to the next race. Where is it now? It'll be there somewhere.
So Abraham, I just got an email back from Linda saying there is somebody in Melbourne, but they're being a little bit elusive. So we might need somebody to step into the breach there as you've offered. So I'll respond to Linda and let her know that you're happy to get the ball rolling.
Okay. Now here we have another banker trifecta. Now I want you to just sort of pay attention or this is a pivotal race, and I'll explain why when I show you the data sheet. It's a banker trifecta, quite basic really. You could cover down to here for second because we're satisfying the requirement to cover at least 80% of the money for second when you're applying banker trifecta, and of course third place comes down to number 1, which gives us 15 combinations. You can see that the money profile very much endorses that coverage. Very strong money for the favourite, of course. Definitive secondary money for runners 3, 2 and 7 down to the money gap, and then of course the next 3 runners are in a different money category altogether. So there's another trading option with 15 trifectas and a banker trifecta. Moving on to SRO6 and another percentage return where we could trade against the weak favourite. As you can see, this time we've got a group of 4 runners, favourite sitting second in the field, money competitiveness here and here and indeed back here. Definitely the group is holding more than 47.5% of market money, and of course we've got zeros in the UDIF column with no numbers in the WUP column. So you know the favourite's going nowhere in terms of a win dividend fluctuation, which is fine. That indicator gives us the green light to trade against the weak favourite number 11 with the group of 4 runners for a projected return of just over the minimum 50%. All right, so there's another one. So we've had 3 in the races, percentage return races on this day where we could trade against weak favourites. And finally, we go to, there it is down there. Percentage return, as you can see here, 4 and 3 is the preferred group, more than 47.5% cumulative for those 2 runners together. 2.24 separator, which is considerably bigger than the minimum of 1.7. Dominant cumulative money, quite dominant 1-minute market support for the 2 runners, and also at the 2-minute mark, and relatively speaking at the 3-minute mark. So there's another clear-cut, strong opportunity, trading with a group of 2 runners, one of them being a strong favourite.
Very good. I've just got Roger asking the brief to cover the UDIF and things like that and WP. So the UDIF is the updated difference. So that's the difference in the price in the last download. So at the moment here you've got 2 minutes to 1 minute. Horse number 4 has got a minus 0.4, which means it's gone down or shortened in racing parlance by 40 cents. The WUP column is, Peter likes to get people to think about this as an indicator. Mathematically, the answer to what WP column is the highest percentage shortener over, for the W stands for win, U stands for update, and P stands for place. So in the last couple of minutes, for a win, horse number 4 has been the greatest shortener, which means greatest coming down in price. Number 2 against horse number 3, that means it's the second highest percentage shortener. And number 12 at 3 is the third highest percentage shortener. And each of those, that's why there's dashes next to them to show us which column they sit in. If there's no other numbers there, then there's no other horses that have shortened. So you can see horses all through here, 13, and these guys are all blowing out in regards to win difference and things like that. So if there's no numbers, each column could have a 1, 2, and 3 in it, representing the percentage shortener. But when they don't, it's not because there's a glitch in the program, it's because there's no horse worth noting there. So hopefully that covers it briefly. If you want to get dug into it, then Pete can certainly speak to you at length about it.
Well, I think from the average person's point of view, without sort of delving into the more complex mathematics of it, if you look at it in a literal kind of figurative kind of way, rather than sort of take it literally, and use it as a sort of a reinforcing indicator, reinforcing what you're seeing in actual money terms and in terms of the separator locations and so on. So you sort of, once again, looking at it from a cause and effect perspective from right to left, you say, well, all the money action is for the top 2 runners. And, you know, I noticed that, you know, I could trade, the indicators tell me I could trade, the percentage and the location of the separator tell me I could trade with the 2 runners as my group. And I see in the WUP column, as Matthew has said, that both my runners, for instance, have got numbers. You know,
Yep.
both got some numbers. Doesn't matter how many. And both of my runners are negative in the UDIF column, whereas every other runner in the field is positive.
Yeah.
Now that's got to tell you that the 2 shorteners in the field are your runners.
Yeah, good.
Why? Because they're attracting all the money. So all the indicators sort of interlink and reinforce each other. And it doesn't mean that if your runners don't have the ideal subsidiary indicators in the UDIF and WUP, that it's not a group to trade with. It just sort of is the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
That you know, gives you that sort of extra endorsement and boost of confidence, I suppose. But, you know, if you're looking at a collective of indicators and all the indicators are sort of pointing in one direction, well, then it's obvious what direction you've got to take.
Perfect.
All right. Now, as I said, we're now going to go to the data sheet. And as we can see, it hasn't been the best of days.
No.
Right? Sure, we got away to a good start with the first race. You know, we've started with a profit. And then, of course, it sort of, you know, tended to go a bit to custard from there. Remember, if you recall, the second trading race, which set itself up as a pretty strong opportunity, the trifecta, was a dismal failure, as was the following banker trifecta. So, you know, all of a sudden, we're sort of taking a bit of a bath very early in the day. Right? Now, I guess you would draw a breath at this stage, because you've got to have a mindset that sort of brings to bear I guess a loss containment exercise. You've got to say to yourself, well, hang on a minute, I'm not just going to keep going. I've had 2 trifectas here that have just not worked for me, and they've both stacked up as being pretty obvious trading options, and neither of them have worked for me. So I'm going to be very, very wary of trifecta. But I might continue on because I am down $600 right at this stage. Now, if I find some pretty strong percentage return races, I may be able to redress this situation slightly, but I'm only going to trade ones that stack up pretty obviously, and if they don't, well, then I'm not going to worry about it at all. And if you recall, the next 3 races, trading against the weak favourites, produced winning outcomes. So from this point here, we've had 3 successful percentage return trades that have reduced the deficit down to a more manageable and more comfortable 300 or so. We've halved our deficit, right? Now, if you recall, I said pay attention to this particular race, WRO1, we get another banker trifecta, right? Now, we've had 2 banker trifectas earlier that haven't been successful. Are we going to risk this one? Are we going to go for broke and see if we can reduce the deficit even further? Or are we going to say to ourselves, well, you know, banker hasn't sort of worked for me to this point. You know, is it worth taking the risk? Wouldn't it be better to say, just cut my losses now, say, righto, I've you know, very happily I've reduced my deficit down to a much more manageable level. I've contained the loss factor, and that helps me to come back another day and be much more successful.
Yep.
And if I just go back to that, and of course you can see here that had you taken this banker trifecta, it would have lost, which puts your deficit right back up higher than it was before, and you know, early in the day.
Yeah. So I guess the obviously officially we're going to show this on the data sheet because everybody needs to see this. But then this is where the user, you, can get involved and go, you know what, I'm not a robot, I'm not an automaton, I have a choice, and I can choose to not actually trade this.
Yeah. Yes, and I just wanted to point out one other thing about this particular race. It is the first race at Ascot, right? So you're looking at a banker trifecta for the very first race of the day. Now, banker trifectas first up at any meeting have got to have a certain element of risk, because generally early races, in my very humble knowledge, have very often standout favourites. There's always a runner that everybody thinks is going to, you know, walk away with the money.
Yep.
Now, sometimes they do. They're true to form, but sometimes they fail dismally. And so, taking all these things into account, even though this presents as a trading option, given the circumstances, you know, leading up to this point in terms of profit and loss, probably the prudent course of action here, as far as loss containment is concerned, is to let it go.
Skip it.
And say, right, in a way, it's been a lousy day. All the trades that I've done, I've been quite happy with. They're quite acceptable. Every one of them, including the losing ones.
Yep.
It just hasn't been a good day. But, you know, the positive side of the coin for me is I've halved my deficit. And I'll switch the program off today, lick my wounds, and come back and trade happily and more profitably at a later stage.
Yeah, good advice, Pete.
And so I felt it was a good exercise today to show that losing day, and just reinforce those points.
Yeah, look, nobody's under the illusion that it's a positive all the time, but if you stick to the rules and stick to your guns, apply rules that you've either worked out for yourself, like some of our more experienced traders, or you're relatively new, or you just want to follow what we teach you, there will be profit to be had over the long term. And that's really the point of today's exercise, is to say, hey, we know that this occurs, so we're not going to shy away from it. We're going to square our shoulders into it because we want to make sure that you have a realistic expectation of what we're actually doing here. What are you doing, Pete?
Oh, hang on. I want to get rid of this day and bring up another.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to drive for a second?
Yeah.
Let's do that. Just close it like that.
Yeah.
Is that what you want?
Okay.
See you later, Abraham. He's off to go drop his daughter off. Close that.
Okay. Now, just if you can just, I'll do it here. This is a Sunday. I just want to show this quickly to you. And we've often talked about patience, you know, being patient,
Yep.
You know, sticking to your guns.
One of my strengths, Pete.
Yeah, yes, I know, Matt.
Yeah.
Actually, I've got to say, not one of mine either. So I can't be too smug. But yeah, it's interesting that on this particular day, and there have been some clients that have sent me data sheets and we've agreed on this, that this day was pretty lean and it produced one trading opportunity, would you believe, a Sunday. And I just want to show this to you. Now there it is, CR07, right? So if you joined in and you decided to do a bit of trading on this particular Sunday, you would be waiting until CR07 to have a trading opportunity. But guess what? It's a banker trifecta.
Banker.
It's produced a healthy winning outcome, and for your efforts and perseverance and patience, you've walked away with a tidy profit. One trade, you got to, yeah, and I would suggest that wouldn't be too many people that wouldn't be happy with that.
Exactly.
So you'd be sitting, probably sitting and swearing and cursing and saying, "What am I doing this for? What am I doing now? I know what I'm doing."
Yeah,
this
there it
for.
is. That's an easy 800.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
very nice.
it doesn't always work that way, but I mean, I think it just served to reinforce the need at all times to be patient.
Yeah, good.
And not force the issue. So I think that pretty much pulls us up today, Matt.
It's a great way to finish, Pete. The ideas presented today, and what I'm really enthusiastic, what I love is the fact that everybody's starting to weigh in on with the question box and things like that. That's really starting to work well.
Yeah,
everybody's getting a bit more interactive.
It's good to see, actually.
Yeah. So and thank you for Abraham. I know he's not listening anymore. He's gone to do something from the family, but offering to be part of that. And thank you, Lawrence, for doing the inaugural Bay of Plenty. What a nice, sounds like a nice place to live.
It does, doesn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Utopia.
Better than Misery Bay or something like that. So, well, everybody, have a great weekend, good day's trading. And is there anything, final words of wisdom, Pete?
No, I think that's about it. I'd also like to thank everybody for their attendance today, as always, and I hope you've taken some sort of positives away from today, and have a great weekend, as Matthew's already said, and we'll look forward to your company next time around. So
very good. And keep your eyes out for the invitations to the online tutorials. Workshops, I mean.
Yeah. Yes.
Online workshops. Please do that, because we've got a few coming out in the next couple of weeks, haven't we, Pete?
Yes, we're coming your way.
That's right.
Shortly.
And then also there's going to be some in-persons after that, isn't there?
Yes, there are.
So Pete and I are hitting the road again.
Yes. Have workshop will travel, Matt.
Indeed. Very good. Well, hopefully we can virtually see you in your hometown or physically very soon.
Very good.
All right. See you later, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye for now.